We talked about something that Jesus is going to give us when he leaves. Jesus is, he's here and he's in this story. Jesus is predicting his death to his disciples. It's like he's got his disciples around and like, Jesus, disciples, I'm not going to be here for much longer. I have to die so that, he doesn't say so that everyone can be forgiven. But basically he says, so that everyone can be forgiven. I have to go and die. And the disciples are all like, no, Jesus, don't go, don't do it, right? And it's pretty much how I would act if Jesus were alive today and he had to go kill him or offer himself up to die. Be like, no, Jesus, don't go, right? Anyway. But he's here and he's talking about what's going to happen after he dies. He goes in John chapter 14, verse 16 and 17. He says, if you love me, you will obey what I command. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever. The Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him, because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. Jump down to 23 if you're with me. Jesus replied, if anyone loves me, he will obey my teaching. My Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. He who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. Now, check out this part. All this I have spoken while still with you. But the Counselor, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. So here Jesus is saying, I've got someone else coming. I've got the Holy Spirit, the Counselor we'll call him, coming to guide you, to remind you of the things that I've been speaking, the things that I've been teaching. In other words, Jesus is promising the Spirit who will come and be with me, and that in the times of trials, when I need him the most, he will remind me of biblical truth. He will remind me of things that Jesus has said. He'll teach me about God. When I started thinking about this, I thought a lot about conscience. And you guys are like, yeah, I want a good conscience, right? I always thought your conscience, the Jiminy Cricket song, always let your conscience be your guide, or whatever, right? Pinocchio, Disney fans? No? Okay, oh, yeah. You're too young for that. Anyway, not to insult you, Megan. But, conscience, right? We always think about, there's popcorn on the floor. Sorry. That's totally distracting. There's popcorn all over that floor. Conscience. And we talk about how, it guides us and leads us. But we also talk about, people with bad conscience, right? People have bad conscience doesn't lead me leads me to do just bad things, right? But I kind of don't even, after reading this where it's talking about, it reminds me of, the Holy Spirit reminds me of things that Jesus has been teaching, reminds me to live out the life that Jesus lives. I start to think that the conscience isn't really just the conscience. I tend to think that the good conscience is either the Holy Spirit, which is someone who's talking to me and leading me towards goodness, or something that's totally not the Holy Spirit. We talk about the demons and stuff that come and influence us to do stupid stuff, right? I start to don't even think that conscience even exists. I start to think it's just either the Holy Spirit influencing me to do the right things, to trust in Jesus, to remember that he is who he says he is and that his words teach me about his words, or it's something that evil that I will let into my mind influence me to go, I don't know, kill someone. Okay, well, that's extreme, but go with it. We can even find this in Romans 8, 5 through 8. We'll come back to you. Romans 8, 5 through 8, where Paul's talking here. He says, those who live according to the sinful nature have their minds set on what the nature desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. the Spirit being the Holy Spirit. The mind of sinful man is death, but the mind controlled by the Spirit is life and peace. The sinful mind is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. Those controlled by the sinful nature cannot please God. We find the guy influenced by the evil, the bad. He doesn't have his mind focused. He doesn't have his mind trained on the Holy Spirit. He doesn't have his mind like pleasing to God, because his mind is death. Like his mind, his conscience is death and not pleasing to God. And but in another time, Jesus promises the Holy Spirit. We find it in John 16, 5 through 15. Jesus is talking here. He says, Now I am going to him who sent me. Now I'm going to God. Yet none of you asks me, where are you going? Because I have said these things, you are filled with grief. But I tell you the truth. It is for your good that I am going away. Take note of that. It is for your good that I am going away. Unless I go away, the Counselor will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. So here we have this, the Holy Spirit cannot come unless Jesus is not on earth and sending him, appointing him to go down to us. When he comes, being the Holy Spirit, the Counselor, when he comes, he will convict the world of guilt in regard to sin, and righteousness and judgment in regard to sin, because men do not believe in me. In regard to righteousness, because I am going to the Father, where you can see me no longer, and in regard to judgment, because the prince of this world now stands condemned. I have much more to say to you, Jesus says, more than you can bear. But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all truth. He will not speak on his own. He will speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come. He will bring glory to me by taking from what is mine and making it known to you. So here, take note of that whole, it's good for you if I go away so that the Counselor can come. He's talking about how the Spirit will teach us more about what God has to say, will teach us more and lead us more into understanding. And so Jesus is promising the Holy Spirit. And then in Acts chapter 2, we have the coming of the Holy Spirit. We have this whole marvelous, miraculous thing that happens, right? Jesus' disciples are up in this room and they're waiting and they're longing for this time that Jesus says, he promises to them. If you wait here and you wait and you're gathered here, the Holy Spirit will come and he will, And so they're up here praying and waiting for this. And then from the moment they hear something off in the distance, and then tongues of fire just appear over their head while they're praying. Kind of an interesting thing, tongues of a tongue of fire, a tongue on fire, just hovering over each one of your heads. Take a look at it. What does it look like? Like a tongue on fire, right? Crazy, right? But it's just hovering over your head. What is that thing? It's a tongue on fire. But it's hovering over their head, right? And then we have them beginning to accept this power where they can start speaking in languages that they've never learned before. It says in they're Galileans and they're speaking Hebrew and Mesopotamian and Egyptian, and they're speaking tongues that's not native to them. It'd be me speaking Himalayan all of a sudden, right? That's what happens. They get baptized with this power to speak Himalayan. Yeah, nice face, Ralph. That's not a language. That's a mountain range. It is. They have Himalayan language, I'm sure of it. Just kidding.